Hi, Assassins! I'm Brooke.
And I'm Cami.
Welcome to Bookish Realms.
We're just two girls who can't stop talking about fantasy books.
Welcome to our Deep Dives of Heir of Fire. This episode covers chapters 36 through 43 of Heir of Fire. Like in past episodes, the chapter summaries and character discussion are spoiler-free, but the rest of the pod does include spoilers for all of Throne of Glass. This podcast is for mature audiences only. Cami, take it away, girl.
Let's get into some chapter summaries. As a reminder, this is a non-spoiler section where we summarize the chapters we'll cover in this episode. So if you haven't read the entire series, but you have read chapters 36 through 43 of Heir of Fire, you can listen to this section. Chapter 36. At a bar, Kale and Aiden pretend that they're just swapping war stories with the soldiers, but they're really investigating the 3 magic locations they found. They learn each location has a black stone tower, just like the one at the king's castle. Chapter 37. Manon is still training with the 13, but she realizes Abraxos' wings need serious help. So what does she do? She flies off to the Rune Mountains, finds the terrifying Stygian spiders, and tricks them into giving her their legendary spider silk. Chapter 38. Even with the new spider silk reinforcement, Abraxos still refuses to complete the crossing. Iskra, being the worst as usual, mocks Manon and even whips Abraxos. Manon's had enough. She beats the living hell out of Iskra. Later, Petra shows Manon a rare moment of kindness, offering her some fresh meat for Abraxos. Chapter 39. Selena and Rowan continue getting closer. While she helps him fill in one of his tattoos, they open up to each other about their pasts. It's a slow progress, but they're starting to trust each other more. Chapter 40. Murtaugh brings major bad news. The king is sending his navy to launch a sneak attack on Wenlin, and there is no way to notify them quickly enough. Oh, and there are creepy, pale monsters lurking in the Dead Islands. Meanwhile, Dorian and Aiden keep pushing Kale to finally pick a side. Otterland or Terrason, Dorian or Aelin, the king or the rebels. Kale can't win. Chapter 41. Selena keeps training with her fire magic and learning more about Maeve. With Beltane, the spring festival coming up, Rowan tells her it's her job to keep the ceremonial fires burning. She tries, but nearly burns herself out. Rowan saves her just in time, and for the first time, he sees the brutal scars on her back from when she was enslaved. Chapter 42. Selena finally shares her past with Rowan, everything she's been holding in, including her time in Endovier. Rowan listens, really listens, and realizes that he's been way too harsh with her. It's a big turning point in their bond. Chapter 43. While Selena recovers, Rowan stays by her side. He tells her about the Karanam, a rare magical bond where 2 Fae can share power. Selena also reveals a vow she made to free the slaves still trapped in Kalakala and Endovier. When they get back to training, she proves how far she's come by creating a solid shield of fire.
Welcome to Character Discussion. Here we'll do a quick recap of characters from this set of chapters. For our main characters, we will discuss who they are, what we know, and give a golden line from this set of chapters. As always, this section will remain spoiler-free. Also, quick note, this is kind of a long section today, so bear with me. For our quick character rundown, we'll discuss Ren, Iskra, Petra, and Narok. Ren. So, Ren has been recovering for a few days now, and even though he's getting better, Ren is still giving off distant vibes because he's been hiding behind his past. He opens up a little bit about how hard it'll be to go back to Terrason, not just for him, but for his grandfather too. Ren is having a bit of imposter syndrome, questioning if his people would even want him, especially after everything he's been through. He thinks Murtaugh is better for the role, but he has his own reasons for stepping back. Iskra. Iskra's bitch ass whips Abraxos, and she gets punished for it as she should. Petra. She offers Manon a goat leg for Abraxos, a kind of peace offering in a sense, and also mentions something about the wyverns talking to them, which, interesting. Alright, next up we have General Narok. He is a general from Otterland who is currently in the south bringing his armada to the Dead Islands, but his fleet is gone, and it is currently on its way to Wendelin. Next up we have our main characters. For this set of chapters for our main characters, we will discuss Aiden, Kale, Manon, Selena, I forgot who the fuck else I had in here. There's a lot of them. We'll just keep it at that. Anyways, let's start with our girl, Selena. Actually, just kidding. Let's start with our boy, Aiden. In this set of chapters, Aiden is as focused and driven as ever, all in for Aelin and her regaining her throne. After 10 years of endless war and loss, he's still holding on to the hope that one day there will be peace. But for now, it's all about the fight. When Ren asks if Aiden wants to be king, Aiden's answer is clear. He doesn't care about the crown. All he wants is to make sure Aelin is alive and fighting, to see her once more, and if the gods grant him more time, he'll be thankful. He's not just a leader by title, he's earned the respect of his men by fighting alongside them, sharing in the struggles, and making them believe that he truly cares for each of them. Aedian's loyalty to Aelin and his people is unwavering, and it drives everything he does. Aedian's golden line from this set of chapters is, "But if there's ever a day when we find peace, gods, that word, that beautiful word, it'll be a strange transition for all of us." Next up, we have Chaol. Chaol is in a tough spot in this set of chapters. He's stuck between his loyalty to his prince, Dorian, and the reality that things are changing fast, especially with Aelin and Aedian on the rise. He's been avoiding picking a side, caught in the middle of everything, but it's clear that this indecision is weighing on him. He still cares for Aelin, but he's afraid of what she's becoming and what the reunion might mean for Adarlan. When Aedian confronts him, Chaol realizes that his reluctance to fully choose is costing him, and it hits him that he might have to face the fact that his past dreams are gone. In the end, Chaol decides to stick to his principles and plans to leave for Aniel, but it's obvious he's struggling with what it all means for his future. His golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, "I'm on neither side. I only wish to help my friend before I leave for Aniel." Next up, we have Manon. Manon is fully in her element in these set of chapters, leading her 13 through grueling training to master flying and combat as one. Every day is a struggle, scratches, near-death experiences, and fighting with the wyverns. But slowly, they start to click as a team. Manon is determined to make sure her 13 are the best of the best and beat every other coven, even taking it upon herself to hunt mountain goats and make sure they avoid the king's tainted food. Even with all the training, she also manages to sneak in a daring trip to the Rune Mountains to secure spider silk for Abraxas' wings, risking a storm and a deadly encounter with the Stygian spiders. Despite the danger, Manon's got everything under control, proving again that when she's focused, nothing stands in her way, period. Her golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, "The world is changing, sister." Next up, we have Celaena. In these set of chapters, we get a deeper look into Celaena's past, her struggles with her power, and her complicated relationship with Rowan. As she helps him with his tattoo, she opens up about her painful memories, her mother's difficult pregnancy, her lack of siblings, and the guilt she feels over what she's become. Her thoughts linger on her cousin Aedian, and the idea of facing him after everything that's happened haunts her. Rowan pushes her hard, challenging her to master her powers. Through their training, we see Celaena's internal conflict. She's terrified of unleashing the full extent of her power, knowing it could destroy everything around her. Yet she's determined to control it, not let it control her. And as she practices, she begins to succeed, creating protective shields of fire, a sign of her growth and control. Despite all the pain she's carried, Celaena's journey is about confronting her past, mastering her power, and finding a path to redemption. She has two iconic lines from this set of chapters. The first one is, quote, "I think facing my cousin after everything would be the worst of it, worse than facing the king." And the next one is, quote, "Because if I free Elwë and destroy the king as Celaena, I can go anywhere after that. The crown, my crown, is just another set of shackles." Next up, we have Rowan. In this set of chapters, we see a vulnerable side of Rowan as he shares a bit of his past with Celaena. He opens up about learning to tattoo from a commander in the war camps, where soldiers would ink the numbers of enemies they killed, and tell her about his parents, who were very old when they had him and passed away before he reached his second decade. He's not one for friendships, though. When things start to shift between them, he reminds Celaena that he's still training her, and that whatever they're building, he's figuring it out too. There's a moment of deep realization for Rowan when he sees the scars on Celaena's back. The sight stops him cold, and he realizes how wrong he was about her past. His protective instincts kick in, and though he's still trying to figure out his feelings, he insists that she stays with him from now on, despite his inner turmoil. Rowan's protective nature comes out, and while he's still sorting through his emotions, he makes it clear that he's not backing down from whatever it is they're developing. His golden line from this set of chapters is, quote, "Give me one good reason why you won't take back your throne. One good reason, and I'll keep my mouth shut." Next up, let's talk about Daddy Dorian. In these chapters, Dorian is torn between his feelings for Sorsha and the lingering connection with Celaena. It's been 2 weeks since that night that they kissed, which cute. And while he's been sneaking around with Sorsha, sharing a bed with her, he can't help but feel the tensions of keeping things hidden. He wants to give Sorsha everything, gifts, herbs, and special tools, but she won't accept them. And despite his best efforts, he knows he can't buy her affection. However, Dorian is conflicted. His loyalty to the crown and his father weighs heavily on him, knowing that if he chooses to align with Celaena, his brother Holland could become king, and that would bring disaster to their world. Dorian feels bound to his duty, yet he also understands the burden of his magic in the way Celaena sees him, unconditionally. Ultimately, he's made up his mind about her, even as he faces a future that's tied to the crown, hoping Chaol will one day understand his choice. And Dorian gave us the most iconic line from this whole series, quote, well, one of the most iconic lines, "You cannot pick and choose what parts of her to love, period."
Let's explore this world. Here we cover the main world-building elements that come up in chapters 36 through 43. We'll revisit these places and world-building elements in other episodes. For today, this section is not spoiler-free, so if you haven't finished the entire series, please do not continue. But please come back when you have. Let's start with Beltane. Beltane is a festival marking the beginning of summer. At Mistward, preparations include music, food, dancing, and the lighting of bonfires. The celebration takes place outdoors and centers on nature, with musicians playing flutes, violins, and drums. In Terrasen, Beltane traditions once included raising maypoles, decorating hawthorn bushes, and leaving offerings at crossroads for the little folk. Bonfires were lit, and some would jump through or over the flames as a ritual for luck, protection, or a strong harvest. The holiday was meant to honor the gods and celebrate magic. Under Otterland's rule, these customs were stripped down to the bare minimum, especially once magic was banished. Only a small nod to the gods and planting season remained. Beltane also holds personal meaning for Aelin. As a child in Orinth, she would run through the fields on this night, openly using her fire. It was one of the few times her power was something to celebrate instead of hide. For her, Beltane was a moment of freedom and identity. Beltane was her day. After over a decade in Otterland, the Beltane at Mistward marks the first time Aelin has been able to take part in the festival again. With no guards present and no threat of punishment, it's a return to tradition for Aelin. The Beltane celebrated in Throne of Glass draws inspiration from real-world Gaelic traditions. Beltane is a Celtic festival that also marks the beginning of summer, traditionally observed on May 1st in Ireland and Scotland. Historically, Beltane involved the lighting of large bonfires believed to offer protection and promote growth. People and livestock would pass between or over the flames for safety and good fortune. Household fires were extinguished and relit from the Beltane fire, symbolizing unity and renewal. Other customs including decorating homes and animals with yellow flowers, building May bushes, which are thorn branches adorned with ribbons, flowers, and shells. Offerings of food and drink were made to the East Sidhe, or Fae folk. Beltane is one of the 4 major Gaelic seasonal festivals, along with Samhain, or Samhain, Imbolc, and Lugnasta. Many Beltane customs are echoed in other May Day and Midsummer celebrations across Europe. In Throne of Glass, the heart of Beltane remains: fire, music, and the celebration of life, magic, and the turning of the season. And next, we have the Caranan bond. In this set of chapters, Rowan introduces Aelin to the concept of the Caranan bond. The word comes from the Old Language and refers to a rare magical connection between 2 fae. The bond allows the 2 individuals to share magic. Aelin and Rowan discover that they are Caranan toward the end of this book. When bonded, a Caranan pair can transfer magic between them. If one is drained, the other can lend their strength, so long as they are compatible and already have a blood connection. Compatibility is unpredictable and can only be discovered by trying. This is part of what makes the bond so rare and so dangerous. Most fae never meet someone who is truly compatible, and even fewer are willing to risk testing it. If a partner is unskilled or careless, they might take too much power. This can cause mental damage or even death for one or both of them. There have been cases where corrupt fae tried to force the bond, usually to gain more power during war. These forced connections were outlawed by Maeve long ago, but some cases still occur. When they do, the results are often tragic, with the bonded person left broken beyond recovery. Sharing magic through the Caranan bond doesn't mean sharing types of magic. Each fae still uses their own elemental power. So, if Aelin gave her magic to Rowan, he would still wield only wind and ice, not fire. The Caranan bond also allows for deep communication, almost like telepathy. This explains some of the mind speaking between Aelin and Rowan. The bond does not require conscious creation, but both individuals will be aware of the connection once it forms and when it's being used. The word Caranan is derived from the Gaelic Mon Aram Cara, which roughly translates to soulmate.
This is our analysis and foreshadowing section, which is not spoiler-free. We'll break down parts of the text that tie into or foreshadow future events in the series. If you have not read all of Throne of Glass, please do not continue. Let's start with our little recap. Last time on Heir of Fire, Celaena's training with Rowan got a little more intense and a little more emotional. After hearing some stories from Emrys and witnessing Rowan tattoo Gabriel, she's thrown into a magical test to save Luca from an icy lake. There's a massive monster under that lake, but Selena, Rowan, and Luca manage to get away. Later, Rowan opens up about the mate he lost centuries ago, and he and Selena make a pact to start healing together. Over in the Farian Gap, Manon's bonding with Abraxas is a little rocky. He refuses to eat some funky-ass meat, so she scales a cliff and catches him a fresh mountain goat. And finally, they take flight for the first time. Back in Rifthold, Kale, Adian, and Ren are on the run and end up hiding in an opium den. That's where Murdoch finds them and shares his theory. Magic didn't just vanish. It was erased by a massive spell from 3 specific points across the continent. And that's a wrap.
Let's start in Mistward. The Selena and Rowan we meet in this set of chapters is very different from the Selena and Rowan we've seen so far. Selena's filling in Rowan's tattoo where it faded after she burned him, and she's taking the opportunity to ask him questions about his past and his life. I'm also just obsessed with the fact that we went from Rowan and Selena brawling and literally verbally abusing each other to Rowan letting Selena tattoo him. The switch up here is wild. As they talk, Selena internally admits that she is feeling better after opening up to Rowan. Quote, she'd awoken that morning feeling clear. The grief and pain were still there, writhing inside her, but for the first time in a long while, she felt as though she could see, as though she could breathe. Selena is finally feeling some emotional clarity after opening up to Rowan, which she desperately needed in order to keep progressing and learning to control her magic because she is so emotions-driven. She's starting to heal, but she's obviously not free from the pain. However, sharing it with Rowan has allowed her to start to face it so that, again, she can begin moving forward.
But our girl is nosy. Selena starts asking Rowan about his family. We learn his parents, quote, faded into the afterworld before he reached his second decade. Selena thinks this is a very interesting way to describe death, and we do too. Of course, we find everything interesting. We've said it before in these Heir of Fire deep dives, but we get a little tidbit about the realms, the world, and reincarnation. So Rowan's parents went to the afterworld, which by Selena's reaction might be a different place than the realm of the dead that we see Nehemia in during the portal scene in Crown of Midnight. It points to different belief systems between the Fae and humans, and we wish we could get so much more about it here and in the rest of the series.
But this isn't a one-way interrogation. Selena shares about her parents too. Quote, my mother, thanks to her Fae heritage, had a difficult time with the pregnancy. She stopped breathing during labor. They said it was my father's will that kept her tethered to this world. I don't know if she even could have conceived again after that. So, no siblings. But, gods, she should shut her mouth. But I had a cousin. He was 5 years older than me, and we fought and loved each other like siblings. I love the parallels here. Aylin's mom was tethered to this world because of her father's will, just like Aylin is tethered to this world through Rowan's will in the form of her tattoo that he gives her in Kingdom of Ash. The tattoo he gives her is a map back home, back to him, because just like Aylin's dad, he refuses to lose her. Aylin's parents loved each other fiercely, and Aylin gets to experience that with Rowan too. But also this idea that Fae pregnancies are difficult is a thread not just in the Throne of Glass series, but in the Maasverse as a whole. At the end of Kingdom of Ash, Irene promises to visit and help Aylin when she and Rowan start having children.
Selena starts opening up about Adian. She knows he became a general in the king's army. Quote, she had failed Adian so unforgivably that she couldn't bring herself to blame or detest him for what he'd become. She'd avoided learning any detail about what exactly he'd done in the North all these years. Adian had been fiercely, wildly loyal to Terrasen as a child. She didn't want to know what he'd been forced to do, what had happened to him to change that. It was by luck or fate or something else entirely that he had never been in the castle when she was there, because not only would he have recognized her, but if he knew what she had done with her life, his hatred would make Rowan's look pleasant. Probably. Selena, they're both playing this blame game right now. But anyways, Selena blames herself for Adian's choices, just like we've seen Adian blame himself for failing her. They both have guilt over what they've quote unquote become. And Selena is really afraid to learn what he's done, not because she's judging him, but because she understands that people are sharpened by pain. Aylin thinks her actions as Selena, becoming an assassin, becoming the king's champion, and abandoning her title would disgust Adian. But they both did what they had to do to survive. They both feared what each other would have to say about what has been happening these last 10 years, but that's because they don't realize that they have been rebelling in their own small ways. Selena's fear and shame keep her from so many things, including claiming her title and her throne, because she doesn't necessarily feel worthy of them and worries about having to explain herself, which Queen, you never have to explain yourself, okay?
Selena continues, saying that facing Aedion would be the worst of it, even worse than facing the king, because, quote, there was nothing she could say or do to atone for what she'd become while their kingdom fell into ruin and their people were slaughtered or enslaved. Facing Aedion is scarier than facing anything else because he knew and he loved her as Aelin. And we've said this before and we'll say it again, but Aelin was a child. She was 8 years old and so was Aedion. Realistically, there was nothing that she could have done at that time. She would have been killed. In the grand scheme of things, it's better that she waited until she was older to stand up and fight back as Aelin. But again, she feels like she has to atone for the path that she took despite not having a choice. From the moment Arobynn found her, Selena lost her autonomy. She started to make her own choices in Assassin's Blade, and that cost her Sam and her freedom. And again, hasn't Aelin atoned enough? She lost her parents and Terrasen. Then she lived a life under Arobynn's thumb, forced to become a killer, forced to grieve Sam, then became a slave in Endovir, and then was forced into the king's competition, and then lost Nehemia. Isn't it enough? It's like that one song, that TikTok song. Haven't I given enough? But Aelin doesn't see her suffering as atonement. She sees it as a consequence of what she became.
I feel like when people have gone through so much in their life, like they simply sometimes just don't understand that like it's not your fault. And she is like the prime example of like, sister, it's not your fault. Like you had no choice. The gods literally fucked with your fate. Like
She is traumatized.
she really is. Very. It's giving very PTSD for sure. Anyways, Rowan asks Selena if she thinks Aedion would kill her or help her. She answers that she doesn't know what he'd think of her or where his loyalties are, and that she'd actually rather not know. And Selena thinks back to when they were younger and people floated the possibility of like a Galathinius-Ash River union, aka Aelin and Aedion marrying, which she didn't take seriously then and certainly is not taking that shit serious now. And then Selena turns the conversation back to Rowan by asking if he has cousins. He answers, quote, too many. Mora's line was always the most widespread, and my meddlesome, gossiping cousins make my visits to Doranel irksome. She smiled a little at the thought. You'd probably get along with my cousins, he said, especially with the snooping. I think this is just so cute. Like not you knowing her. Mr. I don't want to know her, but you're picking up on cues, sir. But anyways, in Empire of Storms, Rowan goes from ship to ship to tell his gossiping cousins about Aelin and how much he loves her so that they'd turn against Maeve, which would be treason. And because through love all is possible, Rowan's cousins actually do turn against Maeve. They raise their white horn flags and fire on Maeve's armada, as they should have.
Selena and Rowan continue going back and forth, and Selena realizes just how much she's sharing. Quote, no one had ever asked her these questions, and she'd never told anyone the answers. Again, it's just like Selena is letting Rowan see so much of her and learn about who she is. And it's not just about the questions or the answers. It's about being able to be like fully who she is. For 10 years, Selena has kept all traces of Aelin locked up, and that has been its own source of pain.
But there are things Rowan still needs answers to, like why Aelin won't take back her throne. He can't understand how she's so willing to free Nehemia's kingdom and save the world, but she can't do the same for Terrasen? Selena's answer is, quote, because if I free Elwë and destroy the king as Selena, I can go anywhere after that. The crown, my crown, is just another set of shackles. As she answers, Selena internally thinks about Nehemia. Quote, it was selfish and horrible, but it was the truth. Nehemia, long ago, had once said as much. It was her most ardent and selfish wish to be ordinary, without the weight of her crown. Had her friend known how deeply these words had echoed in her. Despite everything that Aelin has been through as Selena, she still sees more freedom in existing as Selena instead of existing as Aelin. Because at this point, Selena sees her identity as Aelin and the crown as a burden, which honestly, I feel you. If she could do it at all as Selena, then she could avoid the responsibility of ruling because ultimately Selena fears that becoming queen is just another trap, just like the chains of Endovir, being a Robin's assassin, and being the king's champion. And she's not wrong. Pursuing her throne ultimately leads to her capture, where she does get another set of shackles put on her.
Rowan is very observant, though, and asks what she means by another set of shackles. Again, Rowan does not know about her time in Endovir, but Selena isn't ready to open that door yet. She tells him Arobynn used them for training. And so Rowan asks why she even stayed with Arobynn. Quote, I knew I wanted two things. First, to disappear from the world and from my enemies. But it was hard to look him in the eye. I wanted to hide from myself, mostly. I convinced myself I should disappear because the second thing I wanted, even then, was to be able to someday hurt people the way I had been hurt. And it turned out that I was very, very good at it. If he had tossed me away, I would either have died or wound up with the rebels. If I had grown up with them, I probably would have been found by the king and slaughtered. Or I would have grown up so hateful that I would have been killing Adarlanian soldiers from a young age. After losing her parents, Aelin just wanted to disappear, not just from her enemies, but also from herself and her pain. Even as a child, Aelin wanted vengeance for what happened. She wanted to hurt other people the way that she'd been hurt. And also, I just refuse to call this revenge because it is so clearly not revenge. Vengeance carries moral weight and seeks justice, and that is what Aelin was after. Staying with Arobynn allowed Celaena to become powerful and deadly, and she believes Arobynn's control may have been what kept her alive, even if it twisted her. Without him, she might have died or grown up full of rage with the rebels. And that is also part of why she struggled to leave him behind. We've talked about this several times, but Arobynn gave her an outlet for the darker parts of herself. And ultimately, Aelin's survival is just very complicated. Every path forward would have carried pain, violence, and loss. Like, our girl could not win.
Rowan is shocked by Celaena's honesty. She jokingly suggests maybe they should just go back to beating each other up. But Rowan says, absolutely not. There is no going back now. They already said they were going to heal together. But anyways, again, Celaena jokes that Rowan's other friends must love having him around. And now it's Rowan's turn to be honest. Quote, a pharaoh smiled and he grabbed her by the chin. Not hard enough to hurt, but to get her to look at him. First thing, he breathed. We're not friends. I'm still training you, and that means you're still under my command. The flicker of hurt must have shown because he leaned closer, his grip tightening on her jaw. Second, whatever we are, whatever this is, I'm still figuring it out too. So if I'm going to have to give you the space you deserve to sort yourself out, then you can damn well give it to me. First of all, the tension. Oh, hello. The way I would have folded immediately, like, what? Rowan reminds Celaena that he's still her trainer, not her friend, which, like, ouch, stings a little. But this is still like a raw moment for Rowan. He's admitting that this is new and different for him. And Rowan doesn't fully understand the relationship either and is still trying to figure out like what exactly this all means because he's having little feelings over there. And Celaena has somehow wormed her way in, which she always does. And Rowan also needs space because he has his own healing to do. And Aelin has rocked his world, even if he doesn't admit it here. Later in this book, Aelin claims Rowan as her friend when he calls for aid to protect Mistward from an attack. Rowan claims her when she realizes they're Karanam, and he claims her again when he swears a blood oath to her. It's not just about training anymore, it's about trust. They're both learning to let someone in again slowly and imperfectly.
Celaena agrees to let him sort himself out, telling him it's a deal. And so they fall into a pattern. Rowan is focused on helping Celaena explore and train her magic. Her training is focused on small things that require a lot of control, lighting candles, putting out fires, or being able to weave a ribbon of fire through her fingers. Despite these things being small, she struggles with them. Through it all, Rowan and Celaena talk. Rowan shares stories about his adventures and campaigns. Quote, there was a whole giant world to the south and east of Wendlin, kingdoms and empires she'd heard of in passing but had never known much about. Rowan was a true warrior who had walked on and off killing fields, led men through hell, sailed on the raging seas, and seen distant, strange shores. Guys, you know why we included this? Because we are absolutely haunted by the fact that we don't get a map of Wendlin. On this reread, we have noticed how much SJM teases references to the kingdoms and empires that are around Wendlin, and it is just really hard for us not to spiral. Again, we know that Wendlin is to the east of Aurelia, but there is apparently so much more out there. What is happening in those kingdoms? Do they have their own Maeve and Erewhon? Do they have their own Aelin? It just says a lot that Rowan has seen so much of the world, but still returns to Maeve and Wendlin. Part of that is obviously due to the Blood Oath, but we just need a whole novella on Rowan's adventures because I need to know what's going on in these other kingdoms.
I agree. But Celaena continues to listen as Rowan shares stories from his long life, but she can sense the deep grief he has from losing his mate. Internally, she admits she wouldn't trade her pain for the brutal battles he's endured. In fact, listening to Rowan's stories only solidifies Celaena's feelings about Maeve. Quote, and as she listened, she began to hate Maeve, truly hate her aunt in her core. That rage drove her to request legends about her aunt from Emrys every night. Rowan never reprimanded her when she asked for those stories, never showed any alarm. It's honestly Maeve's fault that Rowan has been in so many brutal battles. And we cannot forget our girl is plotting like she always fucking is, because Selena is gathering information, trying to find something to hold over Maeve's head. Emrys announces Beltane is 2 days away. They spend days preparing, and soon people begin arriving at Mistward, ready to celebrate. Some of the visitors are males, and Selena doesn't exactly mind when they check her out.
But Selena does mind the females who look at Rowan and wants to claw their faces off for it. Quote, gods, she had no interest in him like that, and she was certain he had no inclination to take her to his bed either. Maybe it was just from spending so much time in her fey body that she felt territorial and grumpy and mean. Last night, she had growled at a female in the kitchen who would not stop staring at him and had actually taken a step toward him as if to say hello. So this is called lying to yourself. While Aelin and Rowan are not even remotely close to admitting that they're starting to have feelings for each other, the truth is that they are. Rowan admits to it in Queen of Shadows. And a lot of these feelings can't be helped, especially on Aelin's end. Those territorial feelings she has are an involuntary reaction because her soul knows that Rowan is her mate, even if she doesn't. The mating bond is powerful and rare and unique, but it also triggers territorial reactions like Selena growling at another female for staring at Rowan. This is also the first time Aelin even considers anything physical or emotional with anyone other than Chaol. Chaol is very much not on her mind at this moment.
Not at all. He's not even a speck of a thought in her mind right now. But anyways, Selena has no time to think about it because Rowan has a task for her. She will light 3 fires for Beltane and keep them controlled and even all night. And so Selena begins. Quote, musicians took up places by the forest edge, and the world filled with their violins and fiddles and flutes and drums. Such beautiful ancient music that her flames moved with it, turning into rubies and citrines and tiger eyes and deepest sapphires. Her magic didn't manifest in only blue wildfire anymore. It had been slowly changing, growing these past few weeks. We know our girl loves her some music, but we see again how deeply it affects her. It seems to trigger something inside of her that is connected to her magic. Her flames react to rhythm, almost as if they recognize the beat of the ancient music. And we learn that her fire magic is changing as she learns to control it. It's gone from being a blue wildfire to an array of different colors, which we love a good growth. We love growth.
Rowan knows that this is a big task and stays by Selena. He whispers tips and words of encouragement as she controls the fire. And he does a little more than that when Selena complains that she is sweaty and hungry. Quote, a cool breeze licked up her neck and she closed her eyes, moaning. She could feel him watching her, and after a moment he said, just a little while longer. The internal scream that I let out while rereading this. In Queen of Shadows, Rowan starts admitting that his feelings for Aelin have been building up for a while, and he directly references this moment. In Queen of Shadows, he says, quote, and gods, yes, there had been moments when he'd considered it, but he'd mastered himself. He'd learned to keep those useless thoughts on a short leash, like that time she'd moaned at the breeze he sent her way on Beltane, the arch of her neck, the parting of that mouth of hers, the sound that came out of her. So, not only is Rowan sending her a breeze to keep her cool, he is also absolutely obsessed with the moan she lets out over it. Selena says that she can feel him watching her, and he most definitely is.
And Selena needed that breeze because she's starting to get carried away by the music and the festivities. Quote, but the music was entrancing, the dancers mere shadows swirling around. Unlike in Otterland, there were no guards monitoring the festivals, no villagers lurking to see who might cross the line into treason and earn a pretty penny for whoever they turned in. There was just the music and the dancing and the food and the fire, her fire. This is the start of the music and dancing pulling Selena in. It's both entrancing and free. It all feels so different from her being in Otterland, where there's fear and surveillance. Here she can just feel the joy and enjoy what's happening. She can enjoy the celebration. And adding to this is the fact that this is probably for the first time ever that her fire is part of something beautiful and she doesn't have to hide from it or fear it. And her fire is just a part of the celebration. I think that's really sweet.
Selena can feel the connection between her magic and the music. Quote, she tapped a foot, bobbing her head, eyes on the 3 smokeless fires and the silhouettes dancing around them. She did want to dance, not from joy, but because she felt her fire and the music meld and pulse against her bones. The music was a tapestry woven of light and dark and color, building delicate links in a chain that latched onto her heart and spread out into the world, binding her to it, connecting everything. She understood then. The word marks were a way of harnessing those threads, of weaving and binding the essence of things. Magic could do the same. And from her power, from her imagination and will and core, she could create and shape. This entire section is so interesting in terms of magic. The music and her fire are syncing together, and it makes Selena feel like she's a part of the world again, not separate from it. And this entire moment allows us as readers and Aelin to see magic in a different way. For most of the series up to this point, magic has been framed as a weapon, one that, again, Aelin is scared of. But in this moment, Aelin begins to understand that magic is woven into the world, like music or light. It's not something you use, it's something you're a part of. It flows with emotion, rhythm, will, and purpose. Aelin realizes that magic is shaped by intention and imagination, not just raw strength. And that's the whole reason that Aelin is even in Mistward to begin with and training with Rowan. She needs to see her magic as something she creates, not something that she just reacts with. Aelin realizes that magic, like the word marks, is all about connection, about shaping the invisible threads that link everything together. And this is the first time that Aelin really thinks of her fire magic in this way. She's starting to see it as a part of something bigger.
Rowan takes note of this connection too. He remembers that when he trapped Luca on the frozen lake and made Selena rescue him, she was humming to try to keep herself calm. He tells her to use the music to steady her. But unfortunately, Selena is lost in the connection. Quote, she could barely hear him above the wave of sound filling her up, making her feel each tether binding her to the earth, each infinite thread. For a breath, she wished for a shapeshifter's heart so she could shed her skin and weave herself into something else, the music or the wind, and blow across the world. Her eyes were stinging, almost blurry from staring so long at the flame, and a muscle in her back twinged. The music and her magic are blending together, which is beautiful, but very, very fucking dangerous. The blurry eyes and back pain are physical signs of the beginning of a burnout. Selena is not in control right now, but she can't tell.
Rowan can tell that she's not in control, though. He tells her to stop, but she can barely hear him over the pull of the magic and fire. Rowan begins to panic, but keeps commanding her to stop. He even warns her that if she doesn't, she is going to burn out. Hearing that brings Selena some relief. If the depth of her power is just tending fires for a few hours, then it's not the bottomless well she initially thought. But even that can't bring her back. Rowan apologizes and cuts off her air supply with his magic. Selena is in a lot of pain. She feels like she is burning up from within. Quote, she had shoved herself over some boundary, hadn't heard the warning signs to turn back, and she was burning alive beneath her skin. She shook with tearless, panicked sobs. It hurt. It was endless and eternal, and there was no dark part of her where she could flee to escape the flames. Death would be a mercy, a cold, black haven. Selena has never experienced burnout as far as we know, so she could not tell that it was happening to her. And this burnout mirrors a lot of what Aelin fears about her magic, that it's endless and eternal and she can't escape it. She wants to escape her fire, but she literally can't because it is inside of her, roasting her from the inside out.
Rowan jumps into action. He knows they have to get her into cold water before things take a turn for the worst. Rowan picks up Selena and starts running. Her skin is so fucking hot that she's burning him, but he doesn't care. Selena is barely holding on. Quote, hell, this was what the dark god's underworld felt like. This was what awaited her when she took her last breath. Despite all her progress, what Selena thinks here is so revealing. To her, hell is burning alive. This experience with burnout is reaffirming a lot of the fears she had around her fire. Except now, they're happening to her, not to the books or to people she loves.
But Rowan censors her. She realizes that she needs to calm down or these will be her final moments. Quote, it was the horror of that thought that made her focus on what she could grasp, namely the pine and snow smell of Rowan. She pulled that smell into her lungs, pulled it down deep and clung to it as though it were a lifeline tossed into a stormy sea. She didn't know how long it took, but her grasp on him was weakening, each pulse of fiery pain fraying it. Selena has mentioned that Rowan smells like pine and snow before, but she hasn't yet connected that fact means that he smells like home, that he smells like Terrasen. Here, during her burnout, she uses his scent as a lifeline, as a way to focus herself and stop panicking. It is very much giving, name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, and 2 things you can smell. Which, that's like a very, I've been to therapy moment for me, but...
Rowan gets her into a tub of cold ass fucking water, but Selena is so hot that she boils the water. Think about that. Ice cold tub, she boils the water. And she almost boils herself alive while she's at it. Rowan continues trying to calm her down, telling her she needs to let it out of her. Rowan freezes the water in the tub every time she melts it. focusing on getting her body temperature down. Quote, ice and fire, frost and embers, locked in a battle, pushing and pulling. Beneath it, she could almost taste Rowan's steel will slamming against her magic, a will that refused to let the fire burn her into nothing. Rowan is our girl's balance. She is fire, he is ice, she is embers, he is frost. Their magic can both work together and create balance for each other. It's why they are so fucking perfect for each other. Rowan won't let her be consumed by this burnout. He simply will not. And it's so interesting that Aelin mentions that his steel will is what's keeping the fire from burning her into nothing, because just a few chapters before, she mentioned that her father's will is what kept her mother tethered to this world when she had complications during Aelin's birth. Celaena's burnout starts to become manageable. Before leaving to find a tonic for her pain, Rowan warns her that burnout can destroy her if she doesn't learn to stop before reaching her limit. As she waits for Rowan to return, Celaena reflects on how no one ever taught her about this side of her magic, and wonders if maybe her power isn't as deep as others thought, something that feels like both a disappointment and a relief.
Celaena is in the tub when Rowan returns. Her bare back is to him, and he stops in the middle of the room. For the first time, he sees the full extent of the scars on her back, scars from the whip. His first response isn't horror or pity. It's quiet, lethal rage. Rowan asks, "Who did that to you?" Which, iconic. Celaena could lie, but she doesn't. She's too exhausted, and he's just saved her again, so she tells the truth. Quote, "A lot of people. I spent some time in the salt mines of Endovier." And Rowan just freezes. He asks how long, and she tells him a year, and he goes absolutely still. Rowan's soul already recognizes Aelin as his mate, even if neither of them realize it yet. So this reaction from Rowan, that blinding, bone-deep rage, is the instinctive response of someone who needs to avenge the one who matters most, aka his mate. But instead of acting on that rage, Rowan pulls back. And Celaena notices something else too. He's injured. Her fire burned him yet again. But instead of being angry, he stayed with her, cooled her down, and didn't let go. Rowan confirms that Celaena was a slave, but then nothing. No comfort, no more questions, just silence.
But here's the heartbreaking part. Celaena misreads his reaction. She assumes the silence means judgment. That Rowan, like so many others, thinks she deserved what happened to her. Quote, as if she remembered who he was talking to, and that it was the least punishment she deserved. Celaena still carries deep shame for what she survived. She still believes that her pain was earned, and she doesn't yet understand that Rowan's silence wasn't a judgment. In fact, it was restraint. Because if he let that rage loose, there's no telling, honestly, what he would do. So Rowan walks out, leaving Celaena alone. And then we switch to Rowan's POV. And this man, LOL, male, is beside himself. He's in his hawk form, and there is just roaring in his head. Quote, yet when he'd seen it, his heart had clean stopped, and for a moment there had been an overwhelming silence in his mind. He felt his magic and his warrior's instinct honing into a lethal combination the longer he stared, howling to rip apart the people who had done that with his bare hands. Then he'd just left, hardly making it out of the bath before he shifted and soared into the night. Rowan doesn't explicitly say it, but it's obvious he is overwhelmed by his own reaction by her scars. Rowan attributes this to his warrior instincts, but that's just not the case. Because they are mates, Rowan's soul, magic, and mind are reacting with just pure rage. He wants to hurt everyone who did that to her. Period.
King shit. Rowan's next thought is that Maeve fucking lied to him. Maeve knew what Aelin had gone through and kept it from him, and he remembers what he said to Celaena early on in their training. Quote, that day early on, he'd threatened to whip the girl, gods above, and she had lost it. He'd been such a proud fool that he'd assumed she'd lashed out because she was nothing more than a child. He should have known better, should have known that when she did react to something like that, it meant the scars went deep. And then there were the other things he'd said. Again, Rowan is going through it. He feels so guilty that he once even threatened to whip Aelin, not realizing that she had already lived through that exact same trauma. He is so ashamed of misreading her reaction and not realizing that it came from a place of true deep pain. And in this moment, he does feel like he should have known better, even though they couldn't stand to be around each other when that happened. Rowan can't admit it, but their bond was already forming even back then. He has so much regret over not seeing Aelin clearly from the start.
Rowan considers going to Dornell to confront Maeve, but the thought of Maeve commanding him to not go back to Mistwood stops him, period. Rowan keeps flying and trying to work through his reaction to Aelin's scars. Quote, and she'd almost burned out completely. gods be damned, leaving her currently defenseless. Primal anger sharpened in his gut, brimming with territorial, possessive need. Not a need for her, but a need to protect. A male's duty and honor. He had not handled the news as he should have. Hey, so once again, this is literally called lying to yourself, but okay. Rowan attributes this primal territory possessive anger to his male's duty and honor, which, okay, sure, some of it comes from that, okay? But Rowan's reaction is the reaction of a mate. Hello, get it? He can't stomach that Aylin's been hurt in this way, even if it was in the past, okay? And he feels the need to protect her, especially since she's currently defenseless due to her burnout. Rowan, I need you to get it through your thick skull that y'all are mates, which I know it's not your fault. I know it's not your fault because Maeve did it. But come on.
Rowan realizes that Aelin didn't want him to know about Endovir, that she hadn't felt ready to trust him with that information, and that he is absolutely fucking up right now by reacting this way and leaving her alone. So he turns around to return to the fortress. And we're back to Celaena's POV. After Rowan left, she went back to her rooms and tried to sleep and recover. But Rowan arrives, and he scoops her up and takes her to his room. Which, I'm sorry. How did she, not immediately just, I don't know. But Rowan tells Celaena that she's staying with him from now on, and Celaena says that she doesn't want his pity. And Rowan tells Celaena it is not pity. He really struggles with his words, but he tells her that Maeve kept it from him and that he really wasn't aware. And Celaena can see how much this whole thing is impacting Rowan. Quote, she slid an arm across the bed to grasp his hand. She knew that if she wanted to, she could strike him a wound so deep it would fracture him. I knew. At first, I was afraid that you'd mock me if I told you, and I would kill you for it. Then I didn't want you to pity me. And more than any of that, I didn't want you to think it was ever an excuse. I can't. But Celaena could have hurt Rowan in this moment. She could have just stabbed the knife and dug deeper. But she doesn't because she knew that he didn't know and that he wouldn't have said the things that he did if he knew what she'd actually been through. And Celaena's vulnerable here too. She admits that she doesn't want pity and that she doesn't like to make excuses. She wanted Rowan to see her as capable and strong.
And let me just say, Rowan's reply almost brings us to tears. Okay, quote, like a good soldier, he said. She had to look away for a moment to keep from letting him see just what that meant to her. Rowan and Aelin understand each other on a whole other level. He knows that a lot of her personality and attitude is built around the concept of being a good soldier, of being strong, and being able to withstand extreme emotional and physical pain. And Aelin seeing that Rowan respects her strength is so important to her. Because again, we know that she thinks that she is a coward, which is not true. And then Rowan requests to hear Aelin's full story. He doesn't turn away from her, and he wants to understand her, all of her. All of her, as he should. Despite Aelin being absolutely exhausted, she tells him about Riptold, about her adventures, about Sam, about Endovir, the King's Champion competition, and she ends up falling asleep before she can tell him about the word keys and Elena and Nehemia, but she knows that they'll have time for those stories later. Actually, they'll have forever in order to get those stories.
I love them. Rowan doesn't let go of her hand. When Celaena wakes up before dawn feeling safe and warm and rested, he is still holding her hand. Quote, something molten rushed through her, pouring over every crack and fracture, still left gaping and open. Not to hurt or mar, but to weld, to forge. Again, this whole section just makes us want to cry. But just this one exchange between them heals so much inside of Aelin. Even just the language that she uses here to describe this healing says so much. She's using fire-related language like molten and weld and forge to describe her emotional healing, which connects that healing to her magic. Instead of her fire being, burning or scarring, it's helping weld and forge her back together.
And then we enter Rowan's fussing era. He is fully committed to taking care of Celaena. Okay, so Rowan is not going to let Celaena out of bed and is bringing her food on a tray and making sure she eats it all. She's like, no crumb. He's saying no crumb. No crumbs are left behind. And when Emrys and Luca pop up, Rowan growls at them. And they're like, bye. And Celaena tries to make light of everything, but the truth is she's still in a decent amount of pain. And Rowan tries to explain why he is being such a mother hen. After a burnout, Fae instincts start to kick in hard to protect the vulnerable from any threat. So for Rowan, that means bringing mugs of tea, monitoring the fire, locking the door, and frequently checking on Celaena. Celaena is secretly loving this. Rowan is fussing, yes, but he's also protecting her in a way that no one really ever has. But Celaena also needs to learn more about burnout, so she asks Rowan if the only option to avoid burnout is to stop.
And this is when Rowan tells her about the Karanam. Rowan explains what a Karanam is, a rare, powerful bond where two Fae can share magic, but only if they're truly compatible. Selena asks questions about how this bond works, especially if he'd still only use ice and wind, even with her fire. These questions are so important because she later uses this exact magic through their Karanam bond to defeat the Valak princes. In Empire of Storms, we learn that Rowan had suspected Aelin could be his mate because the signs were there, even in this book, but learning that they were Karanam is what confused him. The Karanam bond is so intense, and it made him doubt his instincts that she could have been his mate.
Rowan mentions that forced Karanam bonds were outlawed long ago, but some corrupt Fae still try. These Fae keep Karanam as magic slaves, often breaking them beyond repair. In the past, Rowan has been sent to hunt them down. Often, he has to kill the enslaved Karanam, as sometimes that's the only mercy he can offer. Rowan says that immortality can twist people. I mean, like, if you were alive for hundreds of centuries of years, then, like, I kind of get it, I guess. But, quote, immortality is not as much of a gift as mortals would believe. It can breed monsters that even you would be sick to learn about. Imagine the sadists you've encountered, and then imagine them with millennia to hone their craft and warped desires. It is hard not to think that Rowan is thinking about Maeve as he says this, despite the blood oath. This is really when Rowan starts to get into his rebel era, I feel like a little bit. But anyways, Rowan understands the darker side of power because he's seen it in action. This is also interesting in the context of the Maasverse as a whole, because we meet many characters who have had a lot of time to turn into monsters. And you best believe we will be talking about this in the Maasverse. And I'm going to keep nodding my head like this so you can understand. You can't see me. Maybe you can. But yeah. You're not going to like some of the things we have to say. Sorry. I'm actually not apologizing. Okay. Selena doesn't want to think about sadists and monsters, so she changes the topic, which, like, okay, queen. She asks Rowan which of his cadre is the hottest and if he like her. And Rowan is just about to have a fucking heart attack, but tells Selena that they couldn't handle her. And, like, just say you want her for yourself. Like, please, stand up, Rowan. Stand up.
But Rowan focuses the conversation again. Rowan gently brings up Selena's scars and says a healer could remove them, but she refuses and chooses to keep them as a reminder. Selena explains how in Endovir she was thrown in total darkness for weeks at a time, and the only thing that kept her sane was repeating her name. Quote, Selena Sardathian, arrogant and brave and skilled Selena who did not know fear or despair, Selena who was a weapon honed by death. Again, we've talked about this a lot in this episode, but this is why it is so hard for Aelin to let go of Selena. That identity became an anchor for her. Even when everything else was stripped away, she clung to being Selena. Selena admits that she still sometimes wakes up thinking that she's back in the mines. And that's why the scars aren't just wounds. They are evidence of what she endured and survived. And, everything that was meant to break her, she got through it somehow.
Then she reveals her vow to free the slaves in Endovir and Caliculla, and that her, quote, scars serve as a reminder of that. The scars are both a reminder and a reminder that she survived and a promise that she will free those slaves. We've said this before, but this is why losing her scars in Kingdom of Ash is so impactful to her. As readers, we see and know exactly what those scars mean. But Rowan isn't done. He asks Selena what happened 10 years ago. This briefly triggers a flashback to what Marion did to save her. But Selena just can't talk about that night. She tells Rowan, quote, there is this rage, this despair and hatred and rage that lives and breathes inside me. There is no sanity to it, no gentleness. It is a monster dwelling under my skin. For the past 10 years, I have worked every day, every hour to keep that monster locked up. And the moment I talk about those 2 days and what happened before and after, that monster is going to break loose. And there will be no accounting for what I do. This is how I was able to stand before the king of Otterlin, how I was able to befriend his son and his captain, how I was able to live in that palace, because I did not give that rage, those memories, 1 inch. And right now, I am looking for the tools that might destroy my enemy, and I cannot let out that monster, because it will make me use those tools against the king, not put them back as I should. And I might very well destroy the world for spite. So this is why I must be Selena, not Aelin, because being Aelin means facing those things and unleashing that monster. Do you understand? So we've seen this rage before, but this is Aelin's first true acknowledgement of what this means to her. It feels like a monster. For 10 years, she survived by shoving down that rage, keeping it locked away so she could function. Assassin, spy, blend in, and survive. That's all that she's known. Her identity as Selena has become a shield, a way to stay emotionally detached and in control, especially while living under the king's roof. And Selena fears becoming Aelin, not just because of the throne or the crown, but because she's worried that she won't just seek justice, that she'll seek revenge, and she will destroy the world. And Selena is kind of afraid of her own power and emotions, but most of all, she's afraid of losing control and becoming a danger to others. She's not ready to unleash Aelin Galathinius until she knows that she can carry the name responsibly.
And once again, Rowan sees her so clearly. He doesn't mince words. Quote, "For whatever it's worth, I don't think you would destroy the world from spite. But I also think you like to suffer. You collect scars because you want proof that you are paying for whatever sins you've committed. And I know this because I've been doing the same damn thing for 200 years. Tell me, do you think you will go to some blessed afterworld, or do you expect a burning hell? You're hoping for hell, because how could you face them in the afterworld? Better to suffer, to be damned for eternity." Again, Rowan can read her like a book because they are mirrors. Like, Rowan sees himself in Aelin. He's also been punishing himself for centuries over Lyra's death, just like Aelin is punishing herself for the past. He knows that she clings to her pain and her scars because she feels like she deserves them. Aelin chooses suffering as atonement, and Rowan's been doing the same. He calls out Aelin for wanting hell instead of the afterworld because he understands that she feels unworthy of peace or forgiveness, especially from the people that she's lost. Aelin's convinced herself that maybe if she suffers enough, she can be forgiven, and that is so relatable. But most of all, we can see that Rowan wants her to stop. They said that they'd choose healing together, not punishment or suffering. He wants her to hope. And I just love him.
Selena cuts him off, telling him it's enough. It's all too much for her. Still. And Rowan gets it. He really does. He lays down next to her, which, period. But, quote, "She didn't know how much time passed. After a while, the mattress shifted and groaned, and a warm body pressed against hers, not holding her, just laying beside her. She didn't open her eyes, but she breathed in the smell of him, the pine and snow, and her pain settled a bit. At least if you're going to hell," he said. The vibrations in his chest rumbled against her. "Then we'll be there together." I feel bad for the dark god already. I'm sorry. Rowan knows right now is not the time to push. It's time to comfort her. And what is more comforting than the smell of home, the smell of pine and snow? And what is even more comforting than thinking you'll have a friend after death, even if it means you'll both be in hell? He is reassuring that she is not alone. You're not alone, sister. Why am I tearing up?
And then we begin the "I swear we're just friends who cuddle and sleep in the same bed" saga. Denial is a river in Wendland Babes. Rowan strokes Selena's hair. Again, we're just friends. And she realizes how much she's missed physical touch, not just from her lover, but from anyone. But Rowan doesn't just offer physical comfort. He tells Selena, quote, "I have no doubt that you'll be able to free the slaves from the labor camps someday, no matter what name you use." Rowan wants her to reclaim her true name, Aelin Ashford Galathinius, but he can also see that this is what she actually needs to hear, that regardless of what name she uses, she is capable of doing what she set out to do. He believes in her, regardless of whether she is Aelin or Selena. Selena leans into his touch and even puts a hand on his chest. She thanks Rowan for taking care of her, and they fall asleep like that. But they're just friends, you guys. They're just friends.
Insane. Simply insane. But after this, Rowan keeps Aelin stuck in bed for days, making sure that she rests after her burnout, even if she is feeling fine. And then it's her 19th birthday, which, period. Rowan disappears for a bit and comes back with chocolate and news of another demi-fake corpse. She tries to hug him, he dodges it, but later she sneaks a kiss on the cheek. Their first, official kiss, I guess-ish, kinda. So once training resumes, Rowan tells her it's time to give her fire magic shape. Swords, arrows, shields, anything she can imagine. It's rough. She struggles to control her magic and keeps getting hit with Rowan's ice daggers. And Rowan is pushing her hard, determined to help her master it. So Selena is wondering if she can even do what he's asking without risking burnout, since it's happened so quickly on Beltane. Quote, "That was not the end of your power." His next ice dagger hovered in the air beside his head. "You fell into the lure of the magic and let it do what it wanted. Let it consume you. Had you kept your head, you could have had those fires burning for weeks, months. No, She didn't have any better answer than that. His nostrils flared slightly. I knew it. You wanted your power to be insignificant. You were relieved when you thought that was all you had. Selena was relieved when she thought that her power stopped after just a few hours, but that is simply just not the case, as we know. Burnout isn't just using too much power too quickly, it's also about not controlling your magic and letting it do whatever the fuck it wants. Rowan needs her to face the reality that her power isn't insignificant, even if she would prefer it that way.
And so Rowan keeps throwing ice daggers at Selena until she finally snaps and yells at him to stop. But he doesn't, so she digs deeper and she channels that anger, and she finally creates a flame-shaped shield that blocks one of the daggers. Rowan smiles and tells her, okay, we're done. But Selena refuses, because of course she does, and she wants to keep going. After a week of training, she's able to control her shields, even creating multiple at once to guard the whole Glen. She even starts sneaking out in the morning for extra practice. And that is it for our babies at Mistward.
Into the witches! Okay, Manon's got a plan. A crazy fucking plan, but she has a plan. Manon trains the 13 nonstop for 2 weeks and skips their rest days to fly into the Rune Mountains with Abraxos in search of spider silk to fix his damaged wings. They get caught in a brutal storm, but Abraxos keeps Manon dry and warm throughout the night by curling around her like a little furnace. At dawn, they spot a forest thick with webs and shadows, and by the midday, they find the Stygian spider's cave. Its entrance littered with bones. Bad vibes. Not fucking with it.
I feel like spiders are always bad vibes. Like, when they came on the scene, these Stygian spiders, I was like, no matter what, like, you're bad. Because, I'm sorry, I know that like, all creatures are good or whatever, but get away from me.
I hate spiders.
Get away from me. They meet a spider who instantly recognizes that Abraxos is a wyvern, saying it's been ages since they've seen a beast like him or dealt with the Iron Teeth witches. But this answers some of those questions we had about the wyvern because the Stygian spiders recognize Abraxos as a beast that they haven't seen in a while. So they existed before. Manon says, "The world is changing, sister." And the spider replies, "Sister, I suppose we are sisters, you and I, two faces of the same dark coin from the same dark master, sisters in spirit, if not in flesh." It is not lost on us that all three creatures present in this exchange are somehow Valg related. The wyvern are Valg creatures, the Stygian spiders were made by Maeve, a Valg queen, and the witches are a product of Fae and Valg blood. So yes, there is a literal connection between the spiders and the witches through their shared Valg origins. But what really stands out is that the spider says, sisters in spirit, if not in flesh. She is not just talking about bloodlines here. She's talking about like the shared darkness within them, in their spirit. That is what the spider thinks binds them first and foremost. To this Stygian spider, their true kinship lies in what they are, not how they were made. And that is so interesting for other purposes that we cannot speak on right now.
This entire conversation between the Stygian spider and Manon is so fucking interesting. The spider mentions the old blue blood priestesses' sacrifices, and Manon jokingly offers to send a few their way. But then the spider asks for Manon's name, and she replies, "My name does not matter." Manon states that she's there to bargain for spider silk to strengthen Abraxos' wings. The spider notes they've sold silk to kings and thieves, but never for wings. Manon responds, "Name your price." It is very interesting here that the nameless is my price prophecy is hinted at through this conversation between Manon and the spider. Manon says her name doesn't matter and then asks the spider to name her price. The spider agrees to continue the trade and sends others to fetch the spider bolt. But the spider asks how Manon got Abraxos. Manon explains that the king of Otterland gave the witches the wyvern, and when they're done serving him, they can take the wyvern home with them to the waste and reclaim their kingdom. But the spider brings up the Croken curse, asking Manon if it's been broken yet. Manon says no, and also reveals that she has never been to the waste. And then the spider mentions that a, quote, young woman with wine-red hair calls herself the High Queen of the Waste. Manon is immediately like, okay, I'm going to kill her. Also, if you haven't guessed already, this is a reference to Ansel, which is so funny because when they do meet in Empire of Storms, they almost get into it.
It's the way everything is connected for me. And that Ansel did go back to the waste after Selena gave her the extra minute. Okay, I'm sorry. The spider got that info from a merchant that came by a few years ago. Quote, the merchant himself was from there, a former shapeshifter, lost his gifts just like all you truly mortal things. He was stuck in a man's body, thankfully, But he did not realize that when he sold me 20 years of his life, some of his gifts passed to me. I can't use them, of course, but I do wonder what it would be like to see the world through your pretty eyes, to touch a human man. This merchant is the same merchant that sells Selena spider silk in The Assassin in the Desert, who is Lysandra's uncle and also pops up in Tower of Dawn. When Dorian kills this exact same spider that Manon is talking to right now, Falcon gets his 20 years of life back because everything is connected. But that's not the only interesting thing that the spider reveals. She calls Manon a truly mortal thing, despite the fact that in every other context, Manon is not seen as mortal. So this Valg creature sees Manon as mortal, which brings up so many questions about the true lifespan of the Valg and the Valg creatures. I have a lot of questions about this conversation. A lot of questions.
I know. And then the conversation is just like plopped in there, and then you're like, okay, back to the next thing. And you're like, wait, hold on, sister, I'm not finished yet. The spider begins showing Manon the spider silk. And again, Manon asks what the price for it would be. The spider responds, quote, what price could I ask of a long-lived witch? 20 years off your lifespan is nothing to you, even with magic aging you like an ordinary woman. And your dreams, what dark, horrible dreams they must be, Blackbeak. I do not think I should like to eat them. Not those dreams. Again, the way this spider talks about Manon and the lifespan of the witches is so different from the way others talk about it. And then there's the dreams comment. One, this spider once again assumes a certain level of darkness when it comes to Manon. And two, what the fuck do you mean that you can eat dreams? The implications of that term of the Valg are insane.
The spider comes closer and ponders if she could take Manon's face, take her beauty. Manon makes a little joke about not being able to walk away if the spider took her face, which, like, LOL. Again, Manon is like, I'm heartless, but I'm going to make this little joke. But the spider clarifies, quote, well, I don't mean your literal face, but the color of your skin, the hue of your burnt gold eyes, the way your hair catches the light like moonlight on snow. Those things I could take. That beauty could win you a king. Perhaps if magic returns, I'll use it for my woman's body. Perhaps I'll win a king of my very own. Manon is beautiful. We know that. She is literally, every time someone describes her, they're like, holy shit, most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Or witch. The things that the spider points out, though, about Manon's appearance are interesting. The color of Manon's skin, which is described as alabaster white. Maeve's skin is also described in that way, which would make sense since the Stygian spiders love Maeve. And then the color of Manon's eyes, which are fully gold, just like the eyes of the Valg kings. And the spider points at Manon's hair, which is also white. I don't have a connection there. I just thought it was cool. But those are the things that the spider wants to take. The reason she wants to take them is even more interesting. That kind of beauty could win Manon a king. Dorian Haviliard has entered the chat. Does Manon's beauty win her Dorian? No. There's a million other reasons that Dorian falls for Manon, but we do love this foreshadowing, especially since the king that Manon wins is the king that kills this fucking spider. Again, the full circle, the planning.
This whole series, like, insane. But Manon begins her con. She tells the spider that she wants to inspect the silk, and as she is inspecting the silk, she pretends to find a flaw and uses it to stall and insult the spiders, knowing Abraxos is ready to protect her. When the spider draws closer, Abraxos attacks on her signal, launching them into the ravine, while Manon steals the silk and flies the fuck off. Manon set the perfect trap for the spiders, and they fall for it. Manon has the spider silk grafted onto Abraxos' wings, but kept it a secret. She doesn't want anyone, especially her bitch-ass grandmother, knowing what risks she took to help her wyvern. When it's time to try the crossing again, Abraxos freezes. He's clearly terrified, digging in his heels and refusing to move. Manon gets frustrated, shouting at him, calling him a coward, but when Astrid says he can't understand you, Manon almost admits that she believes he can. Manon truly believes there is a deeper connection between them, which is so interesting to me. She finally gives up, ordering him to be locked away. She is humiliated. And then bitch-ass Iskra, fuck that bitch, taunts her in front of everyone. Iskra whips Abraxos across the face. Manon fucking loses it. She doesn't hesitate, and she attacks because that's her fucking baby, okay? The fight between Manon and Iskra is savage and personal. It's not about rank or power. It's about defending someone she loves, even if Manon can't quite admit that she loves Abraxos just yet. Sorrel has to physically pull Manan off, showing her that Abraxos is okay. Manan threatens Iskra by saying, "You touch him again and I'll drink the marrow from your bones." Again, that's her fucking baby, which, also ill though. But anyways, the next day, Manan is visiting Abraxos. The blue blood heir, Petra, shows up. Manan tries to shrug her off, but Petra insists that her wyvern, Keely, wanted to give Abraxos the fresh meat.
But despite Manan believing that she can communicate with Abraxos, she tries to shrug this off. Again, our girl just doesn't want to look crazy. Quote, "Oh, she told you?" Manan sneered. Petra clocked her head. "Doesn't your wyvern talk to you?" Abraxos was watching with as much awareness as the other witches. "They don't talk." Petra shrugged, tapping a hand casually over her heart. "Don't they?" I love Petra. Petra feels like what Manan feels, that the wyvern understand them, that they could talk to them. Petra taps her heart because she knows that the wyvern communicate in a deeper way, through instinct and emotion. It's a bond, and Petra can tell that Manan and Abraxos have that bond too. But again, Manan can't agree. She's trying to hold on to who she believes that she has to be, brutal, emotionless, and heartless. But Manan's reaction to Abraxos being whipped by Iskra says it all. She's already forming the kind of bond that Petra is talking about. I mean, she literally faced off the deadly Stygian spiders for him. She defied her grandmother for him. Through her bond with Abraxos, Manan is really starting to understand loyalty and love and choice. And she's starting to understand her own heart. But Petra walks away and leaves the goat leg, which Manan throws away because she is not ready for Petra's friendship yet.
And now off to Rifthold. Okay. Adian and Ren are having a moment on the rooftop of Selena's apartment. Ren thanks Adian for saving him and reveals he and his grandfather have been living in poverty without a home. Ren brings up the trauma of his sisters being killed despite their magic, questioning whether restoring magic will even help. But Adian promises to try, knowing how much pain and loss they're all carrying. Ren admits that even if they're successful, returning to Terrasen will be hard for him. Quote, "I'm not sure I'm civilized enough anymore. I don't know if I could be a lord even, if my people would want me as a lord. My grandfather is better suited, but he's an Alsbrook by marriage, and he says he doesn't want to rule." It makes me really sad that all of these Terrasen kids struggle with the same feelings of inadequacy, even though they've all been fighting against Adarlan in their own ways. Just like Aelin, Ren doesn't know if he'd be fit for his role as a lord.
Adian validates his feelings. He shares, quote, "My life has been war and death for the past 10 years. It will probably be war and death for the next few as well. But if there's ever a day when we find peace, God's, that word, that beautiful word, it'll be a strange transition for all of us. For whatever it's worth, I don't see how the people of Alsbrook wouldn't embrace a lord who spent years trying to break Adarlan's rule, or a lord who spent years in poverty for that dream." Again, Adian knows that peace feels like a distant and unfamiliar idea, but he also has hope. He is not afraid to hope that they will have peace one day. And Adian knows deep down that part of what makes a true ruler is sacrifice, and Ren has sacrificed plenty to fight against Adarlan. Ren admits that he's done bad things, but Adian reminds him that they all have. The tension rises when Ren questions Adian's loyalty, especially his alliance with Kael and whether Adian secretly wants to be king. Adian makes it clear his only goals are to free his people and restore Aelin to her throne. And when Ren points out that the antler throne was burned, Adian doesn't flinch, and he says, "Then I'll build one from the bones of our enemies." But again, Ren can't let it go. I think Ren just has questions for Adian. He asks Adian again if he wants to be king, aka if he'd marry Aelin. Adian says he would not refuse her if she asked, which Ren, again, does not see as a suitable answer.
The thought of them two together makes me sick, actually. But anyways, Adian ends the conversation by saying, quote, "My only wish is to see her again. Just once, if that's all the gods will allow me. If they grant me more time than that, then I'll thank them every damn day of my life. But for now, all I'm working for is to see her, to know for certain that she's real, that she's survived. The rest is none of your concern." Ren sees Aelin as a queen, which is understandable. But to Adian, Aelin is his cousin. Which, yeah, makes sense. While the questions Ren has are important, they're not what Adian is focused on. He just wants to see Aelin. They've been apart for 10 fucking years after thinking that she has been dead this entire time. And Adian is referencing what the gods will allow has a totally different meaning when you know that the gods expect Aelin to sacrifice herself to forge the lock. The gods are always watching and shaping her fate. Later, Kale and Adian are at a tavern. They're trying to gather information from soldiers who might have worked in the location they suspected have the king's magic banishing towers. Kale watches Adian charm the room with ease. He's not just a general, he's metal and sweat, a soldier among soldiers. Unlike the king, Adian earned his loyalty through presence, not power. Adian's toast to the soldiers is heartfelt and strategic, making each man feel seen and valued. This is what makes him dangerous. They believe in him.
And this is when Kale realizes the true threat that Adian poses, not through force, but through influence. These men would die for him because they think he would die for them. And this leads directly into Kale's fear. Quote, he was afraid of what would come when Adian and Aelin were reunited, for he'd seen in her that same glittering ember that made people look and listen, had seen her stalk into a council meeting with Counselor Mullison's head and smile at the King of Otterland, every man in that room enthralled and petrified by the dark whirlwind of her spirit. The two of them together, both of them lethal, working to build an army to ignite their people. He was afraid of what they would do to his kingdom, because this was still his kingdom. He was working for Dorian, not Aelin, not Adian, and he didn't know where all of this put him. Again, Kale is still going through it. His entire belief system was loyalty. He believed and served Otterland, but his loyalty is really to Dorian. Kale is still desperately clinging to a structure and a role that are quickly falling apart around him. Kale's fear isn't of losing power, it's of losing clarity. He is no longer sure where he fits in a world where the lines between right and wrong are blurring. Is he a soldier or is he a rebel? And realizing what Aelin and Adian could be makes him question everything he stood for. But again, where does that lead Dorian? That is Kale's main question. Kale has to find a way to stand by Dorian without swearing blind loyalty to the crown. And right now, that feels impossible because the king is still alive. When the king dies, there's less questions. But
Period. But they're there for a reason. They need information. So, Adian uses a drinking contest to learn more from a soldier who just returned from Knoll, a remote outpost near the deserted peninsula. The soldier, Commander Jensen, describes Knoll as cursed, isolated place full of volcanic ash, sickness, madness, and a mysterious, forbidden tower built after the king destroyed sacred land. Literally the worst vibes. The vibes are at an all-time low. When asked about the quote-unquote madness, Jensen hesitates. His official report says they killed afflicted men quickly, but it's obvious something else went down here. Adian assures him that not a word will leave the table. Jensen admits the truth. The soldiers who went mad in Knoll didn't need to be put down. They killed themselves by smashing their own skulls in. It happened every time, as if they were trying to escape the pain in their minds. With that info, Kale starts putting the pieces together. He's like, got it. I got it. Quote, Selena claimed Kaltain and Roland had complained about headaches as a result of the king's magic being used on them, his horrible power. And she had told him she got a pounding headache when she uncovered those secret dungeons beneath the castle. Dungeons that led to the tower. You were never allowed in. Kale ignored Adian's warning glare. These headaches are a result of the Valg power, since they attack your fucking mind. And Kale, realizing that the clock tower has to be one of the points of origin for the king's magic removing spell. So, now they know two of the locations, Knoll and the clock tower that is in Rifthold.
And the soldier that they're talking to reveals the third location, Amaroth. Quote, Amaroth, the other outpost and Murtaugh's other possible origin point for their spell, due north from Knoll, both the same distance from Rifthold. 3 towers of black stone, all 3 points making an equilateral triangle. It had to be part of the spell then. Murtaugh's theory was right, and now they have all 3 points, which, like we just said, makes a triangle. Taking down the tower in Rifthold is what brings back magic in Queen of Shadows. But let's also give Kale and Adian some credit for their investigative work, because who knows how long it would have taken for them to find the easiest, fastest way to bring magic back if these two hadn't been like, yeah, okay, we'll pair up together and work together. While it's exciting to have the 3 locations, Kale realizes that this means that he has to bring Dorian into this whole investigation because he's the only one who can access magic right now. Using Dorian's magic, they can test their different theories on how to bring magic back. It is exactly what Kale has been hoping to avoid, but there is no other way forward.
So let's get into Dorian's POV. He is happily sharing some morning snuggles with Sorsha. She's been staying with him and leaving early in the morning. Sorsha is different from his other lovers. She refuses his expensive gifts, so he starts gifting her practical tools for her work, herbs and books. Seeing how different she is makes him think of Selena and how loving her was like loving a wildfire. Sorsha wishes for just one morning where she didn't have to sneak out. Dorian knows he can't give her that freedom. His magic, his family, and the crown are all chaining him down. Sorsha leaves and Kale knocks on his door, needing to talk to Dorian. Things get tense quick as fuck. Kale swears to Dorian that what he's doing is to help him and Aelin, but Dorian is simply not convinced. He asks Kale if he still loves Selena. Kale says a part of him always did, but sending her away was what was best for her. And we get another iconic line from Dorian. Quote, "She was not becoming anything different from what she always was, and always had the capacity to be. You just finally saw everything. And once you saw that other part of her, you cannot pick and choose what parts of her to love." He pitied Kale, he realized. His heart hurt for his friend, for all that Kale has surely been realizing these past few months. Just as you cannot pick which parts of me you accept. Dorian Hilliard, the man that you are. Dorian has loved and will love all versions of Aelin. Even if he doesn't explicitly say it here, he fell in love with Aelin. And he accepts it and loves all versions of her throughout this entire series. Part of that is because Dorian can see the parallels between him and Aelin. We talked about this intensely in our Crown of Midnight deep dives, but the truth is that Dorian is a lonely prince. Dorian rarely opens up to people and he has a few actual friendships, and part of that is because he doesn't feel like people would love him, would love all the parts of him, especially with his role as prince and future king. Those feelings only amplify after his magic manifests. He knows what it's like to hide something the way that Aelin had to hide something, which magic, right? She had to hide her magic as well too, and who she was. And he's not afraid to call out Kale for not loving and accepting all the parts of her and all the parts of him. It's a tough pill for Kale to swallow, but honestly, he needed to fucking hear it.
And Dorian continues being iconic in this conversation. He tells Kale that he can't undo what's happened. Kale helps set Aelin on the path to becoming who she is. Kale admits that he wishes he could go back, erase the magic, and stop Selena from being queen. Dorian calls him out, not for fearing magic or Aelin's identity, but for fearing change, saying, "Things have already changed, and changed because of you." Dorian also begins to truly empathize with Selena, imagining what it's like to carry the weight of hiding both her power and her identity. Dorian tells Kale, quote, "As for Selena, you do not have the right to wish she were not what she is. The only thing you have a right to do is decide whether you are her enemy or her friend." Iconic. Iconic. He is iconic. The thing that Kale doesn't understand is that he was never going to have to choose between Dorian and Aelin because Dorian will always consider himself Aelin's friend. But again, Kale saw the world in black and white for so long that he can't see that Dorian's loyalties are also with his friends, not with his father or with Otterland.
Internally, we see just how much Dorian cares for Selena. Quote, "He did not know all of her story, did not know what had been truth and what had been lies, or what it had been like in Endovir to slave beside her countrymen, or to go bow to the man who had murdered her family. But he had seen her, seen glimpses of the person beneath, regardless of name or title. And he knew, deep down, that she had not blinked at his magic, but rather understood that burden and that fear. She had not walked away or wished him to be anything but what he was." Dorian didn't need to know all of Selena's story because he has seen parts of her true self. He feels like he knows who she is at her core and can see past the lies, titles, and pain. And most of all, he feels a mutual understanding with her. She knows what it's like to carry the burden of power. They have that in common as they both carry the weight of the throne and their magic. Selena saw him just like he sees her.
Dorian doesn't let Kale get another word in. He tells Kale he's already made his decision about Selena and hopes that when the time comes, Kale's will be the same. Dorian does not explicitly say what his decision is, but it's pretty obvious to us that he will stand on Aelin's side. The issue is that Kale might have needed that spelled out for him, TBH. I think that he really can't wrap his mind around that and what it means, and I think Dorian needed to say, "I'm going to be on Selena's side." But he doesn't, and I feel like this is where miscommunication really starts.
Yes, it does. But let's switch over to Adian's POV. Murdaugh's back, and he brings some terrible news from his time at Skulls Bay. General Narok is gone and took his fleet to Wendelin. The king is launching a surprise attack on the royal family. But this attack is different. Murdoch shares that Narok took something worse than men. He took creatures that are, quote, made, not born. Rolf describes seeing a pale man with a black collar who seemed to be restrained by something or someone. This black collar matches the onyx torque that the creature that Celaena encountered in the Barrows wore, meaning that some of those creatures are already in Wendelin, though Murdoch doesn't know that yet. Later, we learn that the only thing that can hold the Valg Prince is a Wordstone collar. By the end of this book, unfortunately, Daddy Dorian will be wearing one, as we all know.
Murtaugh says Rolf and his crew felt something wrong about the creature. It had, quote, a hole of silence around it. Narek's timing aligns with Celaena's mission, so then Murtaugh accuses someone, aka Chaol, of sending the king's champion to Wendelin, giving the king an opportunity to strike while the country is distracted. Again, none of them know that Celaena is Aelin, so Murtaugh is so wrong here, but Chaol tries to defend his plan, but it's clear now that the king had his own agenda all along, and the consequences are deadly because Wendelin is unprepared and help is unlikely. Rolf refuses to get involved, and messages to Wendelin likely won't arrive in time to actually help them. This is what leaves Aelin and Rowan to face off against the Valg without any extra help. Murtaugh believes the king's creatures are probably other places as well, and this is just the beginning.
Ren and Murtaugh leave, and Adian confronts Chaol. Chaol literally cannot catch a break. First, Dorian tells him off, and now Adian. And to be honest, even though they don't know it, Adian and Dorian are kind of on the same page here, even though they despise each other. Adian asks Chaol, quote, I still don't quite grasp your role in things, Captain, Adian said. You're not fighting for Aelin or for Terrasen. For what then? The greater good? Your prince? Whose side does that put you on? Are you a traitor? A rebel? Chaol has yet to answer these questions for himself. Honestly, Chaol's been living moment to moment, just trying to do the right thing and make the right decision. But that's keeping him from actually facing the reality of, his situation. Okay? And those words, traitor, rebel, are what echo in his mind throughout Queen of Shadows and in Tower of Dawn.
Chaol insists that he isn't on either side, and Adian says he is going to have to face the music eventually and pick one. Chaol refuses to fight against his kingdom, his prince, or break his vow to his father. Again, his honor is all that he feels like he has left. And again, like Brooke just said, these are the things that haunt Chaol in Queen of Shadows and Tower of Dawn. But Adian continues to challenge him, asking if he'll only fight if Dorian does. Chaol insists that his personal wants don't matter and says Dorian would never approve of killing innocents. Adian mocks him, saying, no taste for blood? But Chaol can also hold his own. He's got one thing that he can hold over Adian's head. He knows Celaena/Aelin and what she stands for. Quote, I think your queen would condemn you if you spilled one drop of innocent blood. She would spit in your face. There are good people in this kingdom, and they deserve to be considered in any course of action your side takes. Again, Chaol knows Aelin's heart and values, and Adian's ruthlessness and willingness to do whatever it takes is simply just not how our girl operates. He needs Adian to understand that Aelin, as a queen, will have her boundaries and morals. Here, Chaol really is holding the moral high ground. They can't lose sight of what they're fighting for, and that means not killing innocents. Aelin would not condemn an entire kingdom for the actions of the king, and if Adian is going to be loyal to Aelin, he needs to honor her ideals, not just defend her throne and title.
But Adian also takes a low blow and throws Nehemia's death in Chaol's face. Adian doesn't hold back, telling Chaol, quote, when your men have died around you, when you have seen your woman unforgivably hurt, when you have watched droves of orphan children starve to death in the streets of your city, then you can talk to me about sparing innocent lives. Until then, the fact remains, Captain, that you have not picked a side because you are still a boy. You are still afraid. Not of losing innocent lives, but of losing whatever dream it is you're clinging to. Your prince has moved on. My queen has moved on. But you have not, and it will cost you in the end. Okay, listen, people. I like Chaol. I've said it before. More so, Cami has said, because I've been a Chaol hater. But I'm back on Team Chaol. I think that Chaol represents humanity. He's imperfect. He has no magic. He's just trying to be like a good soldier here. But I have to agree with Adian. Chaol's first kill was Cain back in Throne of Glass. Chaol has never seen war. He has never lived through its direct impact. And he does not understand the true suffering that can come from it in the way that Adian and Aelin do. And in that way, yes, Chaol is a boy. Chaol isn't just afraid of bloodshed. He's afraid of change. Kale is still stuck in the past, clinging to the dreams that he had of being captain of the guard, of serving under Dorian's rule, and even his dreams of a life with Selena. Aedion warns that refusing to accept reality will cost him, and honestly it does. At the end of this book, Kale has to watch as Dorian is collared and Sorsha is beheaded. And the fight hits Kale hard. He walks out in silence, and that night he just stares at his sword thinking. By sunrise, he makes a move. He goes to the king and says he's leaving for Aniel. And that is it for this set of chapters. And next up, we have our favorite moments.
My favorite moment is when Rowan grabs Selena by the chin and says, quote, "First thing he breathed, we're not friends. I'm still training you, and that means you're still under my command." The flicker of hurt must have shown because he leaned closer, his grip tightening on her jaw. Second, whatever we are, whatever this is, I'm still figuring out too. So if I'm going to give you the space you deserve to sort yourself out, then you can damn well give it to me. I love the tension and the vulnerability here. Selena, honestly, has absolutely rocked Rowan's world. And we can really see that on this reread. We can see how she has somehow managed to get past all of his defenses. And he legit needs some time to figure out how he feels and how to manage it all. Rowan has spent decades of his life not feeling anything, honestly, centuries, avoiding any emotion. And I really think that Selena is the first person that Rowan truly cared about in a long time. And that is obviously a lot for him to handle emotionally. And my second favorite moment is also Rowan and Selena. It's after Rowan has seen Selena's scars for the first time. And she says that she kept them from him because she didn't want him to think that she was using it as an excuse. And Rowan says, "Like a good soldier," he said. She had to look away for a moment to keep from letting him see just what that meant to her. Again, I just love them, but I also think this moment is representative of what it feels like to be seen and understood. Rowan understands, really, truly understands why Selena kept her scars hidden from him, and that is so important and special to her, and we can see that in this moment.
I also have two favorite moments from this set of chapters. My first favorite moment is when Selena and Rowan are in bed together and it goes, "And when she awoke before dawn, warm and safe and rested, Rowan was still holding her hand, clasped to his chest. Something molten rushed through her, pouring over every crack and fractured still, left gaping and open, not to hurt or to mar, but to wield, to forge." The reason why I made this my favorite quote is because it really just reminds me of the end in Kingdom of Ash when she's forging the lock and Rowan is literally "Come home to me," and he tattoos the word marks on her back that helps guide her home. And it just really, I don't know, it just really reminded me of that moment. I think that's why it's one of my favorite quotes or favorite moments from the set of chapters, because that part in Kingdom of Ash is literally one of my favorite moments in the entire series as a whole. So there's that one. And then my second favorite moment is when Selena is reflecting kind of on her magic in a little bit. And it says, quote, "Her magic didn't manifest in only blue wildfire anymore. It had been slowly changing, growing these past few weeks." And I think it's just interesting because I feel like here is when Selena finally starts to realize that her magic can be beautiful and that the fire can be beautiful. And it's not just about hurting others or destroying things, that it can truly be helpful in a way. So I think it's interesting that as she has become more comfortable with her magic and be comfortable with the fire, that it's not just manifesting in something wild, that it's she's actually honing it and crafting it in a way that can be helpful to them in the war in the future. So, and then lastly, we have our final thoughts.
I think this set of chapters is just so good. And I think we've said this in other final thoughts, but it really shows you that there is very little filler in these books because even just the moment with the Stygian spiders, everything is connected. And I just think that is what makes it so interesting on this reread because you can see all of those connections happening. But I also love seeing Aelin and Rowan kind of build the foundation of their relationship and friendship and how they understand each other in such a deep, important way. And I love how much we learn about magic through Selena's close call with Burnout. I think we really start seeing how magic is sentient and how it functions within the fabric of the Throne of Glass world. And I think that's so interesting because we really don't get a lot of chances to explore the details and the intricacies of how magic functions in that way. And I wish we got more of that, more of how the magic kind of does whatever it wants or how she's thinking about it and she's it's connected to everything. And I'm okay, tell me more. Tell me more about that. I need to know more about how it works.
I think for me, like in this set of chapters, something that I like constantly kept going back to is I did not realize how in denial Manon was with like how like her having a heart. Like I simply just did not recall all of the moments where she is like showing signs early on, like how much progress that she's going to make throughout this series. And it really all starts with the Abraxos. I think that without Abraxos, like Manon would have continued to be this like cold hearted bitch. But I think also like as the series continues, like there is just so many and I talked about this before. We've talked about this before. So many parallels to Abraxos and Selena. And when she called him a coward here, and he like that whole scene, like I just love her character arc. It is literally one of my favorite things about this whole entire series. But you really just don't remember like how much she has just grown, but also how in denial she's just been from the fucking start, to be honest. But yeah, that's my final thoughts.
Can I say something crazy that just made, like what you just said made me think about it? But I think that Abraxos is to Manon what Selena was to Kale, because it's like the same thing. Like I think a lot of Manon's character arc and structure actually mirrors Kale. Like she starts as like, I'm the good soldier. I do what my grandmother wants. Like I am just trying to like do, like fulfill her wishes. And Abraxos, like you said, like really starts to break that down. And I feel like Selena did the same thing to Kale. Like Selena came into the castle and Kale was just trying to be a good soldier and he was just trying to serve the king and serve Dorian. And Selena really broke him down. And if you think about how they are kind of at their like lowest points, like Manon and Kale kind of have the same lowest points where like he feels like he's left with no one. Like he doesn't know how to like see himself within the fabric of the world. And like that is kind of like Manon's as well. So I feel like Abraxos is to Manon what Selena was to Kale, which is crazy.
But
Your final thoughts made me think of that.
No, you're good. I think that was a good add-on because I agree with that. That wraps up our deep dives for chapters 36 through 43 for Heir of Fire. Thank you for hanging in. I know it's been a long one. We hope you enjoy our analysis and theories. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our handle is @BookishRealmsPod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on these chapters, so drop us a comment or send us a message. Also, leave us a rating if you liked what you heard. It really helps us out. Also, we're at 19 right now on Spotify, so if you're on Spotify and you haven't rated us, you should rate us so that we're at 20. Thank you so much.
Join us next week when we continue our Heir of Fire deep dives with chapters 44 through 51. Until then, as always, keep reading, assassins.
Bye!